Bonjour à tous et à toutes, bienvenue.
Hello everyone and welcome. There's a lot of us for this first eMag. Thank you and welcome to all.
On voit bien l'écran?
Can you all see my screen?
Merci beaucoup. Donc, je vais commencer tout de suite.
Thanks a lot. So let's start. I will start by welcoming you all and wishing you all a happy new year. This is our first virtual meeting for 2022. Happy New Year to all. Thanks for being here with us for our first eMag. I'm Eva Radek, in charge of events and coalitions at Climate Change.
Je commence aussi également par vous signaler que nous
I
avons
also will let you know that we do have live translation.
cette session en anglais. Vous pouvez. Vous avez juste à cliquer
If you want to follow the English translation, you can just click on the globe and choose the English language.
So if you need live translation today, we do have it. You just have to click on the globe at the bottom of your screen and choose English to follow this session in English. Thanks. Donc, je vais dire deux mots sur.
So I'm going to say a few words about climate change for those of you who may not know it yet. Today, we've had more than 400 people who've registered for this session. So maybe some people do not know climate change so well. Climate Change is an association, an international association funding before the COP21 in Paris. And the aim is to gather all the non-state actors recognized by the UNFCCC. We're talking about NGOs, associations, women's organizations, and unions, companies, etc. The purpose is to favor a good climate for climate action. And we work around three main topics. First of all, we have a portal, for an online portal on our website, which we will put in the chat. This is both in English and French, like everything else that we do. This portal is there to share information like best practices throughout the year. We have a mapping of all our actions and our call for contributions. We also have resources regarding biodiversity and climate, which are published in the Climate Library, which is also on the same portal. And we also have the climate agenda, where you can find all the climate events for future dates, which you will be able to follow and even take part in. The second main activity of Climate Change is our Observatory for Climate Action, which synthesizes and summarizes all the various actions in the world every year. There are several publications every year. Last December, for example, just this last December, we had the synthesis per sector, the report per sector, both in French and in English. And our next publication for 2022 will be the territory report. We will let you know when this is ready. And there will be several eMags dedicated to this one. That's the second. And the third event are the coalitions and the events of the climate change community, and mainly the non-state actors of our large network. Well, thanks for being here with us today. Many of you are here. We are glad to welcome you for our first eMag dedicated to access to funding, climate funding for non-state actors. As you can see, we have slightly changed the format of our virtual meetings this year. And today, we are launching this new format, the eMag. So eMags will be a point of convergence between our three activities, which I have just presented. In the next 6 months, we will use these moments to share information per sector, and we will share some updates on climate action per sector for Africa mainly, best practices which will be highlighted. And we will also talk about great opportunities that will come up throughout the year in each sector. For example, call for proposals, for projects, contributions, etc., that kind of information. You can see all of the sectors that will be tackled or addressed by July. Today's access to climate fund. There will be also other topics like adaptation of water. You can see the list there. So you can get in touch with us if you do have any projects or that you would like to discuss particular topics during these eMag sessions. We'll be glad to address these topics between now and July. We will also post the email to contact us for you to be able to get in touch with us if you need to.
Voilà, donc aujourd'hui, le programme...
So for today, you can see on the program here, this is the first eMag, eMag number 1. We are delighted to welcome 2 actors from the field. And as you can see on the cameras there, we have 3 speakers. We have Fernand Yapi, who is the focal point of the Covenant of Mayors for the city of Cocody in Côte d'Ivoire, and Ayodélé Ognin. She's a consultant and founder of a network of women called WIN, Women Impact Network in Benin. So these 2 guests will describe their experiences in the process of seeking funding, and they will share some advice and tips to advance the application from the very concrete experiences. And to complete today's eMag, we also have invited Barre with for a special moment. So Barre is a member of Climate Change, but she's also the coordinator for the gender and climate policy at WECF, Women Engaged for Common Future, which is a co-pilot organization and of the Access to Finance Coalition. So Anne will present us with a few slides, the teaser, if you like, of a training session that is organized by the WECF on climate finance, especially regarding gender, and she will review the various platforms that exist to find financing offers or opportunities, and she will briefly present the key elements in order to put together a file in order to meet donor requirements. So thanks to all of our guests for being here and for all of our participants also. Many of you have registered. So we will start this eMag with the first question that will be asked to our 3 speakers, and which is as follows. So can you explain to us or present to us in a few words and through a few slides your own experience for seeking funding from an African city point of view, and highlighting the various steps in order to reach this funding and the various difficulties or challenges whom you may have faced. So you all have 10 minutes. Now it's over to you, Fernand. You have the floor. Thank you, Eva. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Fernand Yapi. I'm the focal point for the Covenant of Mayors at the Mairie of Cocody in Côte d'Ivoire. I will share my screen. We can see your screen very well. Thank you. So the experience of Cocody in research and access to funding. What we need to know in order to access funding with the Green Climate Fund. We have different projects. We want to reduce gas emissions to 70% by 2030 and to 80% with the help of the external partners. Regarding the electricity mix, we want to reverse the trend and increase the share of renewable energy to 84% by 2030 2030. And we want to also maintain a healthy environment without any pollution. That's a project that costs around 880 million of French CFA. In order to carry this project, we were the initiator of we developed a committee. We created a sustainable development committee in 2015 with engineers in sustainable development. And the mayor said that we needed to look at actions for sustainable development and to reduce gas emissions. So we believed that it was necessary to actually create a sustainable development committee in order to move on. From there on, there was a political willingness, and we presented this project to the council. And therefore, there was a creation of a budget line by the city council to support the project. Then we started working on the project, and we involved all the socio-economic actors, as well as the scientific community, the University of Cocody, we have like a green forest, which is like the heart of Cocody. So after the consultation of all these actors, we started working on the project and to have a concept. Then the mayor thought, at the time, the previous mayor, who unfortunately died last year, and felt it would be good to also have partners around this initiative in the project. So what would be the best place to show our projects? That would be during the conventions of the UN and at the COP. That's why they went to COP22 in Marrakesh with the objective of presenting the project to all the various partners. After that, when we came back to Abidjan after COP22, the project started taking shape. The Green Fund, Climate Fund, asked us to take part in a workshop at COP23, which is why we also went to COP23 in Bonn. Before that, we took part in this capacity building workshop. So beside the project, we needed to meet some requirements. We needed to, for example, we had a mitigation and adaptation aspect and risk management and a gender aspect. So we needed to be able to federate all of these various aspects, all these topics, if you like. We needed to be able to measure the gas emission. So after taking part in these workshops and training workshops with the help of the Green Fund for Environment, so as the project took shape, we came then with a definite document with also technical support from the UN Environment, the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development, and other partners whom we met during the Climate Change Summit in Abidjan in 2018, the Covenant of Mayors, etc., for Sub-Saharan Africa. So we were fortunate to actually be able to identify the weak points of the project. It's not just about having a project and asking for funding. Often in Africa, we think that funding will be 100%, but you need to present your project and expect and wait for the funding, and then you start the implementation. This is not the way it goes. First of all, you need to have a clean funding, and then make sure that this project meets the climate requirements and ask for help and support. Once the project was eligible with the ABD group, so it was in 2020 that the project was finally presented. So thanks to all the various partners which we met during the Climate Change Summit, Cocody joined an initiative of the European Investment Bank and a platform of data publications, climate data. So since 2017, we've tried to answer some of the questions, the main concerns through this platform, which is a reporting platform. Thanks to this platform, which has an international dimension, and this leads you to research data when you present a project for funding, for access to funding. If you are not able to answer some questions, for example, what is the gas emission rate which the project will achieve in reduction, then you have a problem. So we needed to find a way to be able to assess our gas emission reduction. This project is replicable, is duplicable. When it was implemented, so this platform helped us to answer all these various questions. And thanks to the reporting through this platform, we were able to get a good rate. So we were in a good position for being supported in our project, and we were able to take part in the Global Climate City Challenge in October 28 with as an initiative of the European Investment Bank and the Global Covenant of Mayors. So our project was chosen out of 145 competitors in the world, along with 5 other African cities. I remember going to Dakar in February of 2020 to present the project. The European Investment Bank helps you to mobilize funds. The EIB is not a subvention or a gift, if you like, a subsidy, but helps you to mobilize funding. We are able to mobilize other funds. With a multilateral bank of development or insurance companies. There's a mix, if you like. There was a mix. I was actually going to ask you if you can move on now directly to the difficulties which you may have come across and see where you're at today with the research for funding. Yes, okay, let's do that. Now, regarding the difficulties which we faced, I shared that the project was funded in March 2022, in 2020, which we started developing or creating in 2015. So it was in 2020 which we actually got the funding because of the change of mayor and city council, which really led to some difficulties, unfortunately. In Africa, you don't necessarily have a succession process, or it's quite political, if you like. So it was difficult to get the information with the change of leadership. Even the archives were lost, they were thrown away. There were no archives or related activities of the project with the new administration. The one who left actually was a witness of this project. So information disappeared. So there was a dissolution of the Commune Sustainable Development Committee as well. And this year, thanks to Melissa's visit in December of 2019, we were able to meet the new mayor and to kick off again with or resume rather the work and the project. So this is a difficulty that we faced when you work on a project. Maybe you have just one or two people who are really trained for this, but there's no real support for the implementation of the project. Most of the NGOs have well-trained staff, but in municipalities, people come, people go, they have their own policies. And when people put together a project, there's no budget line really to support the project. So when you go to a green climate fund, you can't really have a support of a bank if you're not able to mobilize funds yourself. How to mobilize fundings? It has to be a transparent funding. There are development banks, there are insurance companies. There's several ways. When you have a mixed, you have the possibility to present then your project. People, therefore, are more at ease to help you and support you. So you need to mobilize the actors. You need to be supported by various institutions. These are experts who are here to help in order to support your project. That's what I can share from our own experience. These are the difficulties which we faced. If there is no budget line, if there is no support, if there's a change of city council, and if the people before did not pass on the information, okay, thanks for sharing this difficulty. Thank you, Fernand. As of today, just quickly, just to sum up what you have said so far, there was a lot of information there. From a city point of view, you underlined the importance of capitalizing on existing events. You mentioned the various COP which you took part in order to meet stakeholders and then have different meetings to develop the research for access to funding. and to develop concept notes and to have access. Also, you mentioned access to data, to have a better or a stronger file. Just as a word of conclusion, just 1 minute, because we've already used up our times. Could you explain where you're at with this project today regarding access to funding in the process? And then we will move on to our next speaker. Just 1 minute, please. Thank you, Fernand.
Ça, c'est toujours le joie des virtuels. Hein?
That's the joy of being live.
Allô, m'entendez?
Oui.
Can you hear me?
On a un invité de plus.
Okay, we have one more guest then. In terms of preservation, we need to preserve relationships with partners such like climate change and others. That's what we're trying to do with our focus group. Partners like the Convention of Mayors, the Mobilize the City, and other stakeholders are also initiated the creation of a municipal ordinance of the working group for the development and implementation of the creation, and having a municipal decree for the development and implementation of the municipal clean energy and climate access plan. You cannot just put together a project without having reliable data. Otherwise, it's difficult to justify for your access request, your funding request rather. And then there is a presence of partners in terms of capacity building, in the preparation of the presence of partners in terms of capacity building to prepare the working group for the search for funding. So you need to always bring the partners to being involved. Cocody has been in touch with those partners. That's why we have succeeded to be able to continue to access funding.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your attention. Okay, I'm sure we will come back maybe with some more questions from the floor. Thank you for your thorough presentation. Now we will move on to our second speaker from an ONG point of view now, from our next speaker, who is Ayodélé Ognin from Benin. I will now share the screen. Okay, Ayodélé, you have the floor. Thank you. Then you can present in the next 10 minutes your project. Thank you, everyone. My name is Ayodélé from Ognin from Benin. My presentation is to actually share an experience, a practical case from the organization Women Impact Network. Our network, we are a little bit of the D system, if you like. We started through climate, with climate, because climate is something that concerns all of us. It was not because we have to do something. We felt actually involved and concerned by this topic. So I'm Ayodélé Ognin. I'm expert in gender and green economy funding projects and also entrepreneurship. Like everyone, I've studied, I was working in a company, then I developed my own association, and I wasn't really climate focused so much, but from a young age, my mother would take us to plant trees in June 1st in Benin. It's a day of tree. We have a motto, one Benin person, one tree. So we were used to planting trees on a particular day, and that's a culture in my family. Every 3 months in our family, we would plant trees. That's how we started. And my mother was mobilizing other women. She was very involved in civil society. As an adult, I continued doing what I like to do, which was sharing my passion, working with international NGOs, and trying to answer some of my city challenges. I was really focused on trying to solve problems in West Africa. We have several seasons with Harmattan around December time. There's a kind of fresh or cold wind coming in the south where I live. And for the last few years, if you've been to West Africa, you will notice that this season has almost disappeared in December, and it only comes in January. So we started thinking about what should we do as a network for women. We decided to take actions in order to reduce the heat in the north and preserve climate in the south. So WIN has been there for 10 years, working on the field, working on the issues of environment, of health. I come from West Africa, and we often use charcoal, which is wood, which is cut and used as charcoal for cooking, for making fire. Unfortunately, this way of cooking actually releases some smokes which make people sick. Many women actually suffer from cancer in our region. So we've decided to do something. So we try to propose substitutes with other types of residues in order to avoid using the charcoal, so that they can stop using this. You cannot stop people from using something if you do not present another solution. So we have been working on the field for some years. In 2019, we became a legal entity, which means that we are looking for practical solutions adapted to our own environment. We're not going to use something that works in Canada to make it work in Benin. It's a different context. We do not have the same financial capacities or the same realities. So for 10 years, we've been working on this. What was the trigger? When we started looking at finances, we started thinking, I come from finance background, so I had my own job. So with people around me, we were just putting our own money. We were saving really. We didn't create or the association thinking that we would live out of it. No, we were funding it ourselves. We were investing our own money to make this association live. So we put together some applications, which is why we decided to have a legal entity. We already had all our files ready. We'd already sent some letters to various ministers, but with no response. In Benin, there are other issues more urgent than climate, like malaria and other issues. But in 2019, I took part in the Climate Change Summit, and I met a former minister from Benin, which really changed everything for us. I told you about our D system, which means trying to do what you can with what you have. And in this environment, relationships, your image is very important. If you're seen rather with someone, it can really add to your reputation. People will see that you're doing something. So I took this picture with this former minister, and I tried to take part in the covenant of mayors with local and elected members. So I just met them, I took pictures with them, I got their contacts, and I tried to get some important appointments with them. So in order to do that, you need to have concrete actions which you want to carry out. If you meet someone, if you come across an opportunity, you have to go for it. Even if the people turn you down, it's okay. At least you need to present something. So coming back from this summit, I started sending out all these messages to all these people whom I met. I did a file, if you like, a portfolio, and I asked for appointments. And I showed them that we were a legal entity. If you want to work with partners, you need to prove that you are serious through being a legal entity. The lack of employment also would lead a lot of the young people to turn to NGOs, to associations, thinking there might be some gold or some money somewhere that they can get easily, but that's not the way it goes. You have to organize yourself, first of all. You need to do something practical and concrete to reassure your potential partners. People then listen to you. They know that you have an agenda, that you have some plans. That's how I met all these various authorities, and I was able to share with them about our project. I'm very much present in social media. Of course, the COVID-19 was for us in a way an opportunity. Even the governments communicates and uses social media. So you have to let people know what you're doing. You need to have a page, whether it's a Facebook page, even if you can't have a website. If it's just a Facebook page, you need to have at least a page where you list all that you're doing. Or if people type in your name, they can see what you've done. So that's what I did. I identified the people of all these projects who had any connection with environment in my country. And as a result, I was noticed by a governmental association. I told you that we've been working for 10 years with our own funding, women training, garbage collection, etc. All we were doing was with our own money. So the first funding was in 2021 from a governmental agency that decided to support us. We have different projects of the French development agencies and others for environment protection. So people see in which way your project would have a positive or negative impact on the environment. So through the ADEGE, they were very happy to see what we were doing already, and it was easier for them to support us. As you can see here, we had a partnership agreement between 21 to 24, so we're going to be working together during that time. And we got our first international subsidy through Logic Canada and other structures supporting us. It's very important to take part in the project, and even if you can, do subscribe to all the platform at Climate Change, learn about all the events, all that they do at Climate Change. They always have people coming to share practical experiences, things that you can identify with. It's important to identify with what others are doing, knowing that they meet similar challenges. It helps to see that you're on the right track. Maybe the way that you've been presenting your project has not been good. So you need to look at those who have succeeded in getting funding. Several associations are working, for example, in Togo. I look at what they're doing, see how they do it. I've met someone there or an association there. We look at what they do. It's very important to do networking, to learn from best practices, and also formalize your own structure. You need to have a document to present your project, have a list of what you're doing. If someone asks you what you're doing, you need to be able to share this. You need to also have the opinion of the people whom you impact practically on the field. Your communities need to be able to speak on your behalf. Often communities are asked about you, and if they've not been impacted, then you might just miss out. So do not focus only on foreign funding, but also focus on what you are bringing to the local populations in order to improve their daily lives. I think together in this collaboration, you always keep on learning and continue doing so. We continue learning and don't ever give up. Its funding is not very far from you, but you need to have a good structure. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, please. So what are our results? We have more than 30,000 trees that have been planted in some cities in Benin, and we do a monitoring of the trees to make sure people do not cut them. We are in 3 cities where we have focused all our efforts. We are also in other cities, but we use the 3 cities. We have mobilized over over 150 chiefs, traditional chiefs, if you like, or leaders. We are in a society where people listen to the older and the wise people, so that's what we do. We've spoken to these leaders or chief villages leaders. We have several gardening clubs in schools as well. From an early age, we teach children how to cultivate small things in their schools and share with them about gardening. We also have people taking care of these gardens. We work really in partnership with the schools to involve the children. We also have 2 incubators totally dedicated to green entrepreneurs, people who are thinking about ways and solutions to improve women's life. We used to use a lot of coal in Benin. So these 2 entrepreneurs are developing new solutions, new ideas. Someone developed a battery based on manioc, cassava. So we try to duplicate this model. So we have trained over 700 young girls and young people to making these. These are girls who have dropped out of schools or were maybe handicapped. Now, the last project, which is training and initiation to urban agriculture of young women, women who lost their jobs after COVID. So even with a small plot of land, people can start planting maybe tomato or pepper or small things which can be used for cooking. So this is in a nutshell what we have done and what we were doing also after visiting climate change and getting in touch with climate change. Thanks a lot for your presentation and this very practical feedback. We weren't expecting you to talk so much about your participation to Climate Change Summit, but that's great. It's good that you were able to meet all these people and how you were able to do all that you've done. So we say we are looking forward really to meeting in person again in the future, so we can continue meeting people. Thank you, Ayodélé. I think there are a few questions, I think, in the chat. Maybe you can answer these people directly. I'm not sure we will have much time at the end for Q&A. Now, our last speaker by Anne Barre. She's a member of Climate Change, as I said. She's also the coordinator for the Gender and Climate Policy at WECF, and she has presented a small teaser on training for gender sensitivity, and she will have 10 minutes and then we will have a conclusion. Thanks a lot, Eva. Can you all hear me well? Yes, fine. So hello, everybody, and congratulations to our previous speakers. These were great testimonies that were very interesting and fascinating, really, that shows that there are many actions going on in Africa that local actors are undertaking. And it showed that it is possible to access to funding. I'm Anne Barre. I'm therefore the coordinator for the gender and climate advocacy at WECF, it's an ONG that has been going on for about 30 years, and I've been part of this ONG for many, many years. It's an ecofeminist NGO working on the field in over 50 countries at the global level, asking for sustainable policies and that would be sensitive to gender and fully integrating the issue of men-women equality. WECF has been part of climate change for a long time, myself personally also since the beginning of climate change. Collaboration and cohesion between various stakeholders at every levels from various sectors for climate action is something absolutely fundamental. And I'm glad to see that at Climate Change there's a great awareness regarding gender equality. So today I will present to you in a few slides an overview of a training which we did regarding climate finance, access to climate finance, regarding also gender sensitivity. Why did we carry out this training? This is a training meeting the objectives of one of the coalition at Climate Change, the Finance Coalition, both on a global scale and African scale. And this is steered, among others, with other organizations from the CSO. So this coalition has an objective, and their goal is therefore to train stakeholders from local climate action and train them to understand what is climate finance. This is a very complex architecture, yet it is absolutely key to know how to access this climate finance. So this training aimed at training local CSOs, feminist CSOs, and it was first funded for 16 participants. This is something which we developed during COP21 in 2015, and the purpose was really to enhance and value organizations that are developing initiatives with gender and climate sensitivity, and they are also able to have a wider impact than just a local impact. Our desire is to see that there would be an impact both at a local and international level. Therefore, it is key to obtain funding. This training, therefore, was there to help these various organizations to find out about the climate funds and to understand what is the climate issue sensitive to gender, to know what are the expectations of their financial backers, and to also know how to finance one's action, whether it's a local action or not, in order to have a greater or wider impact, both at a national or even local level. Let's take a quick look with a few overviews of what we have tackled during this training. Let's take a look. First of all, we presented some current platforms which helps you to understand better what are the various climate funds, current climate fund. This is a very complex structure, yet there are some platforms which have been created by various foundations, which, for example, an international foundation, ecological foundation, the Enrich Wolf-Stilm Fund, which manages various funds and informs people about the amounts, about the requirements for accessing these fundings, etc., and the basic principle for accessing these funds, especially in the area of mitigations and adaptation, and also forest protection. So that's one of the platforms. There are others. Another one is a climate finance explorer from the NDC partnership. The NDC partnership is a coalition of countries working together in order to mobilize funds for financing climate action in southern countries. And this network of countries, and those countries subscribe to the Climate Convention, and they have data that can be consulted, and they list all the various aids and supports for all the activities to access finances. Earlier on, you heard when Ferdinand was explaining how he was accompanied and he was supported in his research through the NDC partnership. You can find out about the various modalities and what to do to research funding. These are just two examples. Now, what we did during this training was also about being gender sensitive. Why is this important and what is the background of this? As you can see here in the first, the small beginnings of gender integration going back to 2010, which is fairly recent, really. This has been a long process in order to progress to where we are now. Most of the climate funds today do have a action plan, gender action plan, or gender policy, meaning that they have practical goals or concrete objectives and parameters in order to analyze gender inequalities that have been impacting their capacity to adapt to current issues. But overall, for climate finance today, actually very few fundings are actually dedicated to both climate challenges and gender challenges. Yet this is something that is pivotal. Most of the time on the field, the first people that are impacted by climate change are women, because the women have to take care of the family, they have to produce food, they have to go and look for all the resources that families need. Therefore, when the ecosystems are damaged, then it becomes very difficult. And yet women often do not have access to the finances or to the political need that they need to implement their actions. And I think Ayodélé showed this very well. So we addressed these other issues like the key principles for integrating gender, for example, having explicit gender criteria in the objectives, having budgets, having indicators to measure results, increasing access to women's groups and to decision-making, etc. You can find on our website, WECF, a document that will explain in a much more detailed way what we mean by feminist financing. A briefing which we developed during the first summit that was launched by a group of multilateral development bank. We also addressed other issues like the principles of financing strategy. I can give you in a few minutes, some quick criteria, basic criteria. First of all, you need to be able to justify your action. It's important to know whether or not whether the financial backers or funders which you will request see your request as being justified. You need to show the urgency and the prioritization of your action. You need to be able to assess the various activities. You need to be able to measure the results of your activities. People need to know how long this action is going to go for, what is the sustainability, what are the risks, how profitable will this be. We need to know what is the legal framework and what is the logical framework of all your action. You, of course, know this indicator, what we call the SMART indicator, as you know. So in the training, we go into details about this. How can we have SMART indicators for the project? What does this mean practically? How do you put this into place? We also spent some time regarding the logical framework, which is really the important framework of any good project, which is required by most of the financial backers, especially public funders, having a clear and logical thought or train of thought to meet the various challenges during a planification of a project. This can be used for the proposal of project, but also throughout the implementation of the project, all the way till the assessment of the project. This is a key element for structuring one's project. So together with the people who took part in the training, we looked at the way that this can help them to put together and build their projects. And also in the access to funding, we've looked at the various steps in order to develop the logical framework, especially knowing exactly what you want to accomplish, what targets you want to reach, how you're going to verify this, what are the hypotheses when you try to fix the goals, and with looking at the risks as well and the various scenarios. And also beside the activities and the goals, you need to also be able to look at long-term impacts, to know how to measure those impacts, to know how to measure detailed outcomes directly in connection with the activities of the project that will provide the necessary conditions for fulfilling the project. So the activities will help to overcome obstacles, which again need to be clearly identified, and you need to have indicators and various hypotheses. So these are all the elements that we looked at during the training session. And then, of course, we had some practical workshops with various exercises, which I'm not going to detail now. What was very important to us was that even though we are a local organization and that we have a local action, yet our action can have an impact at a national level regarding climate action, because in every nation there are NDCs, that is climate roadmaps, which the states have committed to doing, also PNAs. And these institutions and these policies, you need to know about them, and they will include aspects which might concern your own action, or to which your action or your project may contribute. Therefore, it's very important that you can show how you would contribute to these policies, climate policy, through your project at a national level, and possibly lead some advocacy in order to influence these NDCs, for example, making them more sensitive to the gender issue, etc. So these are elements which we talked about. Coming back to the gender issue, often there are some gender action plan. Some countries do have gender action plan at a national level as part of the climate convention, global climate convention. There was a first plan in 2017 and a second one in 2019 during COP25. So this action plan gives you a framework that will help even the local organizations to advocate for an inclusion of gender issues. These are some highlights of what we did during the training. I did not quite look at the time, but I hope, Eva, that I didn't go over my 10 minutes. If you have any questions, of course, I'll be more than happy to answer your question. You can find here my contact if you want to get in touch with us. Thank you for your attention. Thanks a lot, Anne. Yes, of course. Please take note of this email address if you have any questions. Unfortunately, we will not have time for questions and answers in this eMag, but still we will follow through afterwards if you have any questions. So I just want to take this time to thank everyone for taking part in this session. There was about 100 of us, a bit less than 100 people. and you all respected the fact of keeping your mic on mute. Thank you for doing so. And I hope that you were able to better understand all the various aspects necessary in order to ask for a funding, with all the feedback from practical experiences that we've got from both our first speakers, especially from our two first speakers, from Cocody and from Benin. That helps you understand what is necessary in order to put together your file. If you have any other ideas or suggestions or ideas that we could do as part of the Coalition Access to Climate Fund, then take this opportunity to write to us and share this via email. We are open to really any other suggestions so we can further develop our coalition. So do not hesitate to do so. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for taking part. We also want to thank our interpreter throughout this eMag. We will meet again on February 3rd for our next eMag on circular economy. So I can just say thank you once again and say see you soon and goodbye to everyone. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks. Thanks to our guest speakers as well. Thank you. Thanks to all for your attention. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.